All our lives, we've been told to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and you'll be set. How's that working out for you? I'm TaVona Denise, physical therapist turned life and business coach, and I'm on a mission to help you create a life you love and a business on your terms. If you want more time, more freedom, more flexibility, I can help you create it. Welcome to Breaking Protocol, the show for women in healthcare who want more. As always, I am excited because we have another badass in the virtual building. I was going to say in the building, but we're all virtual quarantining, social distancing these times. And I'm so excited to have Mary Grace Gardner here, who I have been fortunate enough to be in a mastermind with for the last several weeks. And something happened during one of our conversations in mastermind where I was like, wait a minute. You have to come in and tell all the people, all the things, because every time I am talking to you, the listener, it is like, I just want you to win so much. And that's why the program is called Courage Circle. That's why this podcast is called Breaking Protocol. And I think Mary Grace is just the person to help with a critical piece of having success as an entrepreneur and not making it so hard. So let me give you the official bio of Mary Grace. She is the founder of the Young Professionista, serving as a college admissions and career coach, helping hardworking students get into their ideal college and ambitious professionals with landing their dream jobs. She is also the co-founder of Human-Centered Reliability, where she teaches a system of thinking and acting to optimize personal and professional performance. She has worked a decade in healthcare as chief of staff. So that's another reason, of course, why I wanted you to come on and talk to us. So hi, Mary Grace. Thank you for being here.
Hi, TaVona. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yay. So we got the official bio now, and I would love for you, if you could paint the picture of, do you remember what we were talking about when I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come and talk to the people?
Yeah, I think it was when I was talking to you about for my Young Professionista business, and I was doing a bunch of experimentation on figuring out what I should do for my next webinar. So I think it was when I was in a situation where it's a webinar run for a couple years now, and I have been able to use it as a driver for participants to enroll in one of my programs, but I wanted to really optimize it. I had people who were joining it, were excited, and I was trying to figure out how do then I help them take the next step. And in our mastermind, I was talking to you about how I was literally taking feedback and then trying something different the next month, and then again the next month, and then going through these rapid cycles of testing and treating it as a work in progress. So I think that was what started that conversation about experimentation.
Yeah, so how did you get to a place where, because I don't think that a lot of people, one, experiment, or two, I'm always fascinated that you're doing these webinars, what I remember, the same webinar, but over and over and over again. And you're like, okay, I took this thing and I tweaked it, or I changed that, or I implemented that, and now this is the result I'm getting. How did you even come up with that strategy or build that ability? Because I am noticing, even for myself, put my own self on blast here. If something doesn't quite work like I think, I want to throw the whole thing out. So yeah, how did you come up with that?
It's so tempting to, right? Because you get frustrated, and by the time you create the thing and you launch it and there's something that doesn't work, you realize, okay, maybe the entire thing's a mess, when really it might be just one small thing that needs to change. And if you didn't just focus on that one small thing, you might think the whole thing's a failure. So I think what started me having this mindset, first off, there's stuff that happened when I was growing up where my parents really just encouraged experimentation, that it was okay for me to be a lifelong learner. So that part, I think, was always embedded. But from a career perspective, it was actually my career in healthcare that really embedded this mindset of experimentation, which is probably contradictory to any of the people who are listening in healthcare, because of clinician, especially clinicians, right? You are expected to know the answer, right? You go to school, and most of us in the healthcare world were top of our classes and we knew the answer. And when you're dealing with a patient, that's probably not the time to experiment, right? You're not hoping that your doctor or the surgeon is saying, hey, let's do an experiment in the middle of a surgery. However, the specific role I had in healthcare as chief of staff, one of them was I was in charge of teaching something called lean and performance improvement. So what that discipline is how do you use evidence-based problem solving to improve things in a hospital or improve things in the delivery of care? So that could be, how do you make sure that your patient's experience gets better? How do you make sure that quality is better? And what we encouraged was helping care teams figure out together, what are some of those problems that are getting in the way from you getting to your goal? And what's one small thing you can change and try to see if it makes things better tomorrow? And so I literally took that same mindset and applied it to business. And that's what has kept me open-minded to this experimentation process.
So tell me a little bit more about what your offerings are with Young Professionista.
Sure. So for the Young Professionista, there's two lines of business. One is the career consultations that I do, where I help individuals in a one-on-one basis. And we focus on career transitions like going for promotions or going into a new industry. So usually those are mid-level careerists. But my main focus is really on the college prep world. My focus there is really on helping students with figuring out what are their passions, figuring out what types of changes they want to make in the world, and then helping them explore that through high school so that they have this portfolio that they're passionate about. And when they apply to college, they are applying in a way that's much more holistic. And so I have been doing this for the past 10 years now, alongside my career in healthcare. And it wasn't something I ever thought to create into a business. And recently, over the past couple of years, officially turned it into a business because I saw that there were ways to be able to help people in a bigger way if I actually turned it into an offering that was repeatable.
You were doing it for basically 8 years for free.
Yes. And so like many probably folks who are listening who are in healthcare and then are exploring entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship was always something that was talked about growing up, where my parents always encouraged, go for that education, go for the thing that you want to do, and be open-minded to, if you see a problem that needs to be solved, starting a business, right? So that was always an open conversation at home. And as I was climbing up in my career path in healthcare, and I was loving my job, right? I still love working in healthcare. I always had people picking my brain, and I just never thought twice about it, right? So for my own personal experience, people were wondering, how did I get into competitive schools? So I got into schools like Yale, Johns Hopkins. I have my undergrad degree from UCLA, my grad degree from Berkeley. They also wanted to understand, as a graduate student, I was part of the Berkeley admissions team, reviewing applications and making decisions on who got accepted, denied, who got scholarships. So people wanted to pick my brain. And so it just had always happened from college and on, where people would say, hey, Mary Grace, can you give me feedback about my kids' experience? Can you tell me what you think about this? And so I squeezed these consultations before work, during lunch, after work. And then I got to a point where I felt like, wow, these are the same questions happening over and over again. What if I create templates to respond? Or what if I shorten the time from an hour to then 20 minutes because I know how to answer? And then I got to a point where people at work were asking me these questions. Everyone was asking me, and I realized, wait a minute, should I be monetizing this? And is this actually a business? And then that's when I said, well, let's see. I charged for it. The next kind of person who asked me, I said, let me actually charge for it and see what happens. And I was able to be compensated for the time. And I realized there's something here. And that's where, yes, did it for free. So I have over a decade of experience in the topic, but I did it for free for so long. And now that I've actually turned it into a business, I'm now at this point where I am able to help more people in a way that is both fulfilling and challenging and fun for me.
I think that's interesting that you said now that you've turned it into a business, you're able to help more people, because I think there's so many people listening that they just do stuff that kind of comes natural to them. So what was that turning point in your mind where it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've been doing this for free for 8 years. I should probably charge for this. And what was it like for you charging the first time, something that you had given for free and it came naturally to you? It was just this thing that you did.
I think that one of the reasons I thought about charging for it was because people were coming back to me, letting me know what an impact it made on their kids' lives, or the students themselves telling me what transformations they had, right? So I might be mentoring them about career exploration. I might be mentoring them about extracurriculars, right? And so different things where for me, it just came naturally because I tend to generate ideas. I could see the potential in people, even when people can't see it themselves. And so it just came naturally. And so when I started hearing about these big shifts and these big transformations, and then it became friends of friends who were coming for help, I also knew that I needed to create a system around myself in order to be able to protect my time, because I still had the day job. I have two babies. I have a 2-year-old and 4-year-old, and I wanted to help people in this avenue, but I also needed some systems around it to be able to do it effectively. Otherwise, if you kind of just patchwork everything, there's no end to how much time you can give, right? And that might just not be effective or efficient in both your time as the business owner or the time of the recipients, right? So that was one piece. The question you had though about charging for it for the first time, it's interesting because as a career coach, I'm always telling people, make sure you negotiate for your worth, and make sure that you are happy with the way in which you're compensated, and that you're getting compensated for the value you provide. And I think in a career setting, I've always been comfortable with negotiating. I've always have been comfortable with advocating for what I felt like I deserved. When it came to now charging for a business, I had some mental blocks there where my goal became, let's see if someone can actually pay me $1. Like that was literally my goal, is can I get someone to pay me $1 for my knowledge that is outside of a day job? Even though in my day job, I was making a good salary, my goal for business was make $1. That was kind of the way that I approached it. And yet I wasn't afraid to charge, because that other side of me, knowing you charge for your value, you charge for the transformation. Obviously I didn't charge $1. So I charged a rate that made me feel comfortable. And when that first notification from Stripe came in of this person has given you this amount of money, I realized this could be something that I can continue to grow. It just takes that one time as proof for yourself. And then you realize this is something that I can continue to build.
That's so, so good. And it's interesting. I was doing a little math in my head, and you said you have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and you've been doing this for about 2 years. So did you start this business when you were pregnant? And if so, one, why did you do that? And what was it like to be pregnant starting a business?
Oh my gosh. So I've been doing this now. I guess officially I'm going to be on my 4th year of the Young Professionista being an official business. And it did start around me being pregnant. So there's this period that they call nesting. And I know everyone nests in different ways. Some people clean and they get their houses in order. My form of nesting was, let me finish all these certifications. Let me get a real estate license. I've never used it before, but I have one. I just thought that would be a good time to get it, I guess, at the time. And I thought, well, let me get my business all sorted out. And so I took a course on entrepreneurship. I said, let me try to finish my webpage and landing page and my first webinars. This was all the month before I was going to give birth. And I think for me, there was that hard deadline of, I need to make sure that I have all of this laid out so that when I am on maternity leave and the hypothetical time of when the baby is napping, I can use this as an outlet of additional creativity. And so it was, I know this is going to sound strange, it was fun. It was a fun experience for me because I was building something that was mine, right? So when you're in a career, you can build something that is yours, but you're part of this bigger vision of the CEO of the company or the founder of the company, and you're contributing to that overall vision versus it was mine. It was mine that I was building from scratch. And it was me who was calling the shots of what was the content. It was me who was creating what should it feel like and look like. And so it was fun. And also because I imposed that deadline of giving birth, of that's the stop point for this phase, it encouraged me to take action pretty quickly.
So, would you have any words of wisdom for anyone who is in that similar situation where it's like maybe they just found out they're pregnant or they're in the midst of the pregnancy and they're like, oh, is it the right time to start the business? Should I wait till after the baby's born? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I have lots of thoughts about that. I think if you wait until you feel like it's the right time, there's just never going to be the right time. I think when I look back at my own life and I think, wow, I had so much time when I was a student, right? Or I had so much time before the kids. But if I went back in time and talked to myself at that time, I'm sure I would say, future Mary Grace, you are, I don't know what, this is bizarre. I am really busy right now. I do not have the time to add this on. So I think there's so much clarity when you look backwards and you say, well, maybe I could have done this and I should have done that. I feel like if you keep waiting for that time, it's just there's never going to be this pause in your life, especially if you're the type of person who wants to grow, who wants to challenge yourself. Every year you're probably putting more on your plate to grow. And so I would say if you are having the itch to explore entrepreneurship, you can take a step, right? And even if you feel like you don't have a lot of time, because like I still have my day job. I still literally right before our conversation, I was helping my 4-year-old with his TK virtual Spanish class. Well, I'm monitoring that while I was also working on my day job, right? So what I find is that when you do have and allot the time and space to work on the projects you care about, you are even more productive, even if it's half an hour or an hour in that day. I now can do so much in that hour that maybe the Mary Grace 10 years ago would not have accomplished in that same amount of time. So 30 days before giving birth, I was able to whip out a website, create webinars, start an email list. I mean, there's so much I could do. So I would say for people who are thinking, I just don't have time, I think that there's still some steps you can take to take a step forward in exploring that interest.
I'm so glad that you said that because I don't have any kids, but I'm thinking about my capacity. I'm thinking about capacity in general. Like people look now like you do so much, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like a lot. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult because back in the day, I took the steps to learn how to do a little bit at a time so that it became rote or it became habit now. So that's so important. I would love for you to touch on, if you don't mind, for the moms that are maybe in a similar situation as you right now. You're working full time in your healthcare job and you're monitoring the homeschooling and you're running the Young Professionista. So, what on a day to day basis, if you don't mind sharing, does that look like and how are you managing that? If you had any tidbits to share.
It comes back to also to Parkinson's law, right? The task that you have will fill the amount of time you give it. And so I think I have, especially right now in COVID pandemic era, I think everything is on overdrive, right? We have our kids. I hope my husband's a teacher. So he's in another room teaching a middle school class. So we are all just on, right? I think for us, what has helped is a couple things. One is my husband and I literally have a huddle every morning saying who's on point for which pieces, who's going to be transferring over here, who's going to need this amount of time when, right? So it's definitely teamwork. And also for the kids, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I would tell them during this time, mommy is going to have a conversation with Miss TaVona. And so don't knock on the door during this time. You have your homework that you're focusing on, right? And my 4-year-old said, okay, mommy, I won't knock on the door during that time unless I need something, right? Unless I really, really need something. So part of it is that expectation setting. And then the other thing that's been super helpful is having a feedback loop at the end of the day. So not every day goes 100% perfect. And so part of that is my own self-reflection of, okay, well, that didn't go well. What should I do differently tomorrow to help things run smoother? Feedback also from my husband or even the kids of, are there things we should do differently tomorrow to help your days run smoother as well? I think that helps quite a bit too. And then one thing also that's super helpful and we're very fortunate of is we have some help with my in-laws who typically live in Los Angeles. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, but they are up here and they can take our 2-year-old and help us in the mornings with the baby. So a lot of it is just teamwork around making sure we have a community that is understanding and respectful and knowledgeable about each other's priorities so that we can all kind of help each other accomplish what we want to for each day.
Wow. I was like, your kids must be angels to have a 2 and a 4-year-old and you're doing all of that. So can you talk to me a little bit about like the people were just coming to you and now they pay you for the Young Professionista and your career services and the other stuff that you do. Why the decision to stay in healthcare while you're building your business, your baby? And if you can take a sneak peek into the future, do you plan to continue to do both?
In the entrepreneur space, oftentimes you see the narrative of people who are in a job and they want to escape the job and go into entrepreneurship. And I totally respect that, right? I love seeing those stories. I think for me personally, I see myself as someone who is multi-passionate and I call myself a portfolio careerist. And so my career is a portfolio of different things that I find fulfilling. And so for my healthcare career, I am challenged by it. I love the work that I do. There's smart people that I'm working with. It's fun. I love that work. And I think that having a business, so I have my Young Professionista business, I'm launching a second one called Human-Centered Reliability. It allows me to explore these other interests that I have as well. And so I think it's not really a either or. For some people it is, and I think that's completely fine. For me, it was a both and. I like my day job a lot. I love the boss I work for. I like the contributions that I'm making. I'm inspired by the work. And there's other parts of me too where I feel like I can give. And so the nice thing is that whatever boss I've ever had has been super supportive of this as well. I'm completely transparent about my situation. And I know for some of the listeners, that might not always be the case, right? There might be some situations where you can, and that's where you're going to have to figure out what's the right best thing for you. And I've always had and surrounded by managers who were supportive of me, of course, doing well in my day job, right? I've always have done well. And they've always been supportive of me exploring my other interests and growing in other ways. The nice thing though, is that what I have been learning in entrepreneurship has helped a lot actually in my day job. I remember as one of my chief of staff roles in healthcare, I was working with our marketing team. I worked for a large healthcare system, and it was both a hospital, a health plan, and a medical group. And we were talking about the changes of healthcare and the insurance product, and how do we make sure that what we're providing is the right thing for our people. And I had all this marketing experience that I could talk about. I knew about ideal clients. I knew about avatars. I knew about onboarding processes. I knew about how to use social media. And so they were asking me questions like, well, can you be our social media manager? Actually, I know this is a little side thing you do in your part of your day job, but can you help us launch that? Or can you speak to these certain things or be in these certain venues? And it was because I knew about marketing and I knew about that type of stuff. And so it actually has been super helpful. And especially the other piece that's been helpful too is about learning about brand building. So when you're building your brand as an entrepreneur, it's been also super helpful because there's so many elements that you can actually apply to leadership and building a leadership brand. And so the executive leaders that I'm working with, they are benefiting from what I'm learning in that space as well. And so I have been able to merge the two. And so your question about, do I ever plan on leaving healthcare? Currently, I don't have no plans to leave healthcare because right now, all of it is helping to fulfill the way in which I want to contribute to the world.
I think that is so important what you said about the parallels and how it makes you even more marketable in the job and in the organization because you have skills that you built over here for your business that you bring over here. And I was saying that we recently did an interview with Dr. Emily Shaw about how to get coaching into your organization. And we were saying some of the same things that we had to learn in building our coaching practice. Marketing, we learned sales, and then you have to sell the idea to the organization and the higher up. So I love, love, love that you touched on that. One thing that somebody might be wondering as they're listening is, okay, so Mary Grace has been fortunate enough to have these wonderful managers that support her ideas and her side hustle and all of these things. If somebody's in a position where they're like, you know what, that makes sense. It's not either or, it's both and. And I also love that you said that. And I want to do this for myself. Like, how could potentially someone approach that conversation with their manager?
I would say first thing is check your onboarding documents, because sometimes there is a clause on there where it says that you are not allowed to, right? So I would say before you even talk about it with your manager, double check your paperwork of what you signed to make sure that that's not the case. For me, in the work that I am doing now in healthcare, there actually was a clause about no moonlighting. And so while I was signing my documents, I said, oh, well, I got to make sure, because I have this other passion project I'm working on. So I called up HR, I talked to the manager before I signed on and took on a new role, and told them about what my experience was and asked them if this was an issue. And they said, absolutely not. This is not in competition with the work that you're actually doing. Actually, that could be helpful. We would love that. And they actually included it in my announcement, right? So to the company, I know they were so supportive of it. So first off, I would say check your paperwork, and then make sure, like for me, I had to pause because when I saw it, I thought, oh, that means I can't. And actually I could. So make sure to do that first. And then the second is make sure you're performing well in your day job too, right? So I think if you are not performing well in